Well, good morning, everyone. We welcome you all to the opening press conference for the 55th General Assembly of the Organization of American States, the OAS. My name is Gonzalo Spariz, and I'm the Press and Communications Director at the OAS. We have with us the Foreign Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Mr. E.P. Chet Green, the OAS Secretary General, Mr. Albert Ramlin, and the OAS Assistant Secretary General, Mr. Nestor Mendez. Welcome, and thanks for being with us today. This press conference will be conducted in English. For those present in the room, interpretation devices are available if needed. For those watching remotely, there are 3 channels available, one with the original audio, one with Spanish interpretation, and one with English interpretation. You may find those channels via our website, www.oas.org. We will start with opening statements from our officials, and then we'll open the floor for questions. Mr. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And I bid welcome to my esteemed colleagues, the SG and the Deputy SG, Assistant SG of the OAS. Also say welcome to visiting journalists and in general visitors to Antigua and Barbuda. From the get-go, I want to say on behalf of Prime Minister Gaston Brown and the entire nation of Antigua and Barbuda how delighted we are to be hosting this very important and auspicious meeting here in Antigua and Barbuda at a time when the Americas, by extension the world, is not in the most comfortable places. I think we can all say this morning we've enjoyed, but it is. And we're hoping that as a result of our hosting this meeting, that the Americas will leave Antigua and Barbuda in a better place, with hope, with a belief in ourselves and our ability to fashion policies, programs, and responses that will impact the direction and future of our beloved Americas. As we gather here in St. John's at this beautiful AUA property, it is also quite timely that I give recognition to the management of this outstanding university for hosting us. We're not only here in the most beautiful country in the world, but we're here as the most beautiful people in the world. We have declared ours as a region of peace. I think we come into this space with that strong belief, and we leave this place, hopefully, with a stronger belief yet, commitment even, to maintaining the Caribbean, the Americas as a zone of peace. The thematic areas to be covered in this very important assembly all impact on life and living in the Americas. Since the pandemic especially, we have been having quite a bit of conversation across the region, and I say the region to mean the wider Americas, on the question of mental health. And so Antigua and Barbuda's presentation of a mental health resolution is quintessentially a reflection of our times. And the call is for us to engage and to leave St. John's with a stronger commitment yet to tackle issues of mental health. Peace, prosperity, and all the other issues that we've tackled are issues which I'm sure delegates are coming to Antigua are ready, fortified, and certainly prepared to discuss. As Foreign Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, I can assure you that for us, we do not wish for a talk shop. We wish for a meeting with meaningful outcomes. And so whatever our thought processes might be, I want to fashion us and lead us into that direction. It's not AI now, not AI-driven, this is a straight conversation. That we embrace the moment, understanding what our call is at this stage. The call to duty is real. The call to save and to almost rescue our American civilization. It is timely, and the leaders of the Americas converge in Antigua and Barbuda with a single focus, a single mission, that of improving the lives of the peoples of the Americas. Within the broader geopolitical space, it is how we fashion programs, how we fashion plans and initiatives to have the Americas continue to be a global leader. And so the journey begins in earnest now with this first press conference. I will end like I started by welcoming the Assistant SG. The SG, the first outing in this capacity, we would have sat together in several meetings, myself wearing the Antigua Barbuda cap as Foreign Minister, and he wearing the cap of Suriname. Today I have to look up to him as my senior. And quite gleefully I say, congratulations to you, my dear colleague. I have every confidence that your leadership of this organization will be down to the benefit and advantage of our regional hemispheric growth and development. And it's in that context that Antigua Barbuda welcomes you as SG to this your first of hopefully many General Assemblies. Again, to the media, mine is a moment of invitation, welcoming, and I'm sure that you would know that ours is a tourism destination. So as I look through the room, you see me moving left to right, if only for the purpose of making sure that when I see you next in Antigua in your swimsuits or in the hotels, I recognize you from this morning. In other words, I'm extending an invitation to you to not make this your last trip, but for many of you, your first. Welcome to Antigua Barbuda and to the 55th General Assembly that we now host. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Mr. Secretary General, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and good morning still? Yeah, good morning. Antigua time, good morning. I first of all want to welcome Minister Chad Green, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Barbuda Affairs of Antigua and Barbuda, who has been a strong supporter of the inter-American system in different capacities. So I want to thank Minister for being here this morning and for joining us in this press conference as our host to the General Assembly. I believe this General Assembly takes place for several reasons in a very particular, interesting, if you wish, some would say challenging environment, both from a global perspective as well as from a regional perspective. And it adds a certain degree of responsibility to all of us, especially the heads of delegations who will be attending this meeting, the ministers, to utilize the time we have over 2.5 days here effectively so that we can have a frank, open discussion on these developments, because these developments have major impact on our lives. And ultimately, it's about that. Ultimately, whatever we do is for the people we serve. And whether we do that directly as elected officials or indirectly as representing governments and international organizations, regional organizations, we all have the same obligation, is to serve the people of the Americas, to do exactly what the Organization of American States stands for since 1948 in terms of democracy, representative democracy, in terms of human rights, in terms of rule of law, in terms of independent, strong judiciaries, but critically important also the issue of sustainable development, prosperity. It's in the charter of the OAS. Peace and prosperity are critical objectives of this organization. So not that we have to remind ourselves, but we have to always be cognizant of that fact, that peace and prosperity is what we stand for. And for that, we need a democratic framework, we need proper elections, we need to solve problems in a pragmatic way, and I'll speak to that much more on Wednesday. But this is our view. So from that perspective, this General Assembly has its own meaning, because we live in particular times. Another reason for the special occasion is certainly that this General Assembly takes place in the Caribbean. A small grouping of countries, but powerful in terms of its assets, its experiences, in terms of democracy, in terms of human rights, in terms of civil society engagement, in terms of trade unionism, and being all of them, each of them, particularly small economies in today's world, have demonstrated to be resilient. We can take excellent lessons from that in terms of how we deal with larger problems in the hemisphere. So the region has agreed and has supported the election of a Caribbean national as Secretary General. And I think it is with that ambition, but also with that reality of that experience which we represent within this region of unity, able to work together, although the countries are all different, towards a same goal, a common goal. And that's to create a better life in the Americas and certainly in the Caribbean. So as Secretary General coming from a Caribbean country, it's a particular pleasure, Minister, to be here in Antigua and Barbuda. I shook hands yesterday, which I had done many times before, but for the first time as Secretary General, the first Prime Minister, the head of government, in my term in office is the Antiguan Prime Minister, Antiguan and Barbudan Prime Minister Gaston Brown, and I want to thank Prime Minister Gaston Brown for his dedication, his commitment, but also the efforts. A small country, 160,000 people, more or less. How much? 100,000. The 60,000 will come if you all visit. 100,000 even. So it's not a small effort. It's a real commitment you must have to be able and willing to spend so much money on an energy and capacity to organize such a meeting. So this meeting has so many facets which should inspire all of us to, as the Minister said, to focus on deliverables, to focus on concrete issues. The time for talk is there sometimes, but the time to walk is even more important today. So that's a Caribbean expression, and I take the advice of the Minister very highly. I want to thank Ambassador Sanders also for, as permanent representative of Antigua and Barbuda to the OAS, for his contribution and his work. I'm pleased to see in the audience here many of our, or some of our permanent representatives and permanent observers, very important, and senior officials of the organization. It's very important. But of course, our addresses to the media here present and also those virtually taking part. Antigua and Barbuda it's not the first time the country hosts a big conference, a large conference. Last year I was here in a different capacity at a Small Island Development States Conference, which resulted in very concrete proposals. Minister, I hope to see the same happening here, and that we can have a forward-looking agenda. Now, with regard to the agenda, the Preparatory Committee has approved and agreed on an agenda for this meeting. And from my perspective as Secretary General to the organization, with a clear mandate of member states to make the OAS much more relevant, much stronger, more efficient, more transparent, revitalize the organization as the main vehicle in our hemisphere for multilateralism among member states. Based on those requests, instructions, marching orders of member states, we have started the process of making the OAS stronger internally in terms of the workings of the OAS. The second, so this is something which we will present here, our vision for the future of the OAS as a multilateral institution. And multilateralism is of critical importance in this hemisphere, especially now when we have so many issues to deal with. We will speak also about the Summit of the Americas, and I hope that the tone, the first thoughts with regard to what should happen at the Summit of the Americas, when the leaders of the Americas will come together in Punta Cana in Dominican Republic early December, that the tone is set here in terms of what we expect from that summit. So that is the second, and we'll have an opportunity in the private dialogue to speak to that and to hear from ministers where their priorities lie and also where they need to, we need to focus on. The last one is something which I think is also very important is many comments are made about the state of play in the hemisphere. And the state of play in the hemisphere, depending on how you look at it, can be seen as one where the hemisphere is divided and where there are issues and problems, which, of course, for a certain part is true. But I think we have another way of looking at what is happening in the hemisphere. It's a very diverse hemisphere, socially, economically, politically, legally diverse, historically, in terms of language. But that diversity is not a disadvantage. It should be an advantage to building a stronger community. We can learn so much from each other. We can benefit so much from each other. So what I'm looking for also in the debate here is a more positive, forward-looking, constructive agenda on what is uniting us and not what is dividing us. A common forward-looking agenda, because that is ultimately where I expect results to come from to the benefit of the people of the Americas, through the OAS, through other parts of the inter-American system, through private sector engagement with civil society, and all of us, private sector, civil society, governments, international, regional organizations, play a role in creating that environment in our societies, which is going to be peaceful, secure, with a prospect towards the future, and making sure that we have a hemisphere where there is no open war, no open conflict, where we deal in peace with issues, where we invest in each other's country, where we trade with each other, a more united, connected hemisphere. I hope that this General Assembly, under your leadership, Minister Green, will set the tone, and I hope that tone will translate also in Punta Cana. So these are the three things I expect from this General Assembly. I know that there are some particular issues which we are willing to address later on when we receive the questions, but I think the overall flow should be one of an optimism with regard to where we go in the Americas. And there's a role to be played by all member states and permanent observers and other players, including the Inter-American Development Bank, Pan-American Health Organization, and the Inter-American Agriculture Institution. So thank you very much, Mr. Gonzalo, and we'll be open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. Mr. Assistant Secretary General.
Thank you very much, Gonzalo. Minister Green, SG. It's a true privilege to be in Antigua and Barbuda. I feel at home in the Caribbean. I guess those who know me know this is my extended home. I want to echo the words of the Secretary General in expressing our deepest gratitude to the government of Antigua and Barbuda and all its authorities for their very warm welcome, literally warm welcome in this beautiful island state. I would like to say a special hello and thank you to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Barbuda Affairs, the Honorable Paul Chet Green, and good friend, the Ambassador Ron Sanders, the permanent representative of Antigua and Barbuda to the OAS, Ambassador Liverpool in the back there quietly managing everything from his cell phone, and his team, of course, who have been working tirelessly to put this event together. Thank you for your exceptional support, your dedication, your hospitality, and of course your commitment. We have worked closely with our team from the OAS with them over the last months to make sure we have a good General Assembly. I also wish to express our thanks to the media representatives who are joining us today. Your work, as we all know, is essential to keeping our citizens informed. Your work is more important than ever to promote open and transparent dialogue on the issues that impact our region. Thank you for your dedication and thank you for being here. The General Assembly, as you know, is the OAS highest political authority, and its decisions will guide the activities and priorities of the regional body over the next year. Since 1971, 23 of our member states have hosted the regular General Assembly. We are very pleased to return to the Caribbean region for the first time since the 32nd session held in 2002 in Barbados. Over the next 3 days, our foreign ministers and other high-level authorities from across the continent will gather to address some of the most urgent and complex challenges facing our hemisphere. The government of Antigua and Barbuda has chosen as the theme for this assembly, building resilient, inclusive economies in the Americas. This theme emphasizes the need for the region to focus on building economies that can withstand shocks and ensure equitable participation for all citizens. This involves addressing challenges such as climate change, economic inequality, disaster preparedness. This General Assembly, as the SG mentioned, represents a valuable opportunity to discuss and advance the regional agenda on these crucial matters. As is our tradition and responsibility, these issues will be discussed not only among representatives of member states, but also with various sectors of civil society, youth, women, indigenous peoples, people of African descent, entrepreneurs, workers, and the LGBTI community. All of these actors are key players in the development of our region, and their voices are essential to their deliberations. I am pleased to give you now some of the statistics that we have compiled so far on the attendance at this 52nd regular session of the General Assembly. As of 7 a.m. this morning, the General Secretariat has processed 650 accreditations, of which 190 are representatives from our member states, including 17 foreign ministers accredited as heads of delegation, and 14 vice ministers and other high authorities. 84 representatives from 32 permanent observer countries to the OAS have also been accredited. The Secretariat has processed 327 registration requests from civil society organizations, social actors, labor organizations, and private sector entities. Additionally, we are joined by 36 institutions, including international organizations, regional or sub-regional intergovernmental entities, and specialized OAS bodies, with a total of 49 delegates. I would like to highlight some of the key issues that are included in the agenda for consideration of member states. These include concrete solutions to be brought to bear as a matter of urgency to resolve the grave security and institutional crisis in Haiti, advancing hemispheric initiatives on integral development, as the Minister mentioned, addressing the critical mental health crisis in the Americas, and others such as recognizing the contributions of Pope Francis to inter-American values. Additionally, during the fourth plenary of the Assembly, elections will be held for 3 members of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, 3 members of the Inter-American Juridical Committee, 1 member of the Administrative Tribunal, 1 member of the Audit Committee, 2 members of the Justice Studies Center of the Americas. In the lead-up to the Assembly, several preliminary activities are scheduled to take place. Tomorrow morning, there will be a direct dialogue with representatives from civil society from across the hemisphere, the private sector, and other social actors. This interactive forum will promote constructive exchanges on meaningful issues of common interest. Tomorrow afternoon, the highest OAS authorities will hold a dialogue with OAS permanent observers, whose importance was highlighted earlier in his remarks by the Secretary General. Their continued support and collaboration are essential pillars in achieving our shared vision for the Americas. Additionally, the government of Antigua and Barbuda, together with the Pan American Health Organization and the OAS, is co-hosting a side event entitled Uniting the Americas for Mental Health from Commitment to Action. In this event, Ministers of Foreign Affairs of the region will leverage regional leadership and identify common perspectives to advance mental health at the global level, reinforcing priorities for regional collaboration on this issue. The opening session of the General Assembly will take place tomorrow evening at 6:30 p.m., and it will be officially opened by the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, the Honorable Gaston Brown. In preparation for all of these events, we have worked tirelessly to ensure a rich and meaningful agenda that reflects the priorities and concerns of all our member states. We look forward to fruitful discussions on these topics, and I am fully confident that this 55th regular session will be a resounding success and a milestone in our ongoing pursuit of a more integrated, secure, and sustainable hemisphere. Thank you, Gonzalo.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now we'll open the floor for questions. Questions from the floor? If you can identify yourself, please, and the media outlet you represent, and who you are addressing the question to, please. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Robert Emanuel. Good morning. My name is Robert Emanuel. I'm with Antigua Observer. My first question is to the Secretary General. You would have answered one of my questions, so I would have had to shift it a bit. But essentially, it's how would the OAS under your stewardship look to address, I know you said about much of your institutional challenges, whether it be your financial challenges, the lack of political will from my perspective towards addressing many of the regional issues, as well as you said, making the organization run more efficiently. You spoke in your press conference, in your comments just now, about trying to make the organization, essentially trying to bring together the organization, using the diverse thoughts and diverse ideologies within our region to craft a common forward-looking agenda. And as yourself stated, you are a Caribbean Secretary General, the first Caribbean Secretary General, and now you're hosting an OAS General Assembly in the Caribbean. Taking into account your Caribbean heritage, as well as your experience being a Caribbean diplomat, how do you plan to craft this constructive dialogue at this General Assembly? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Antigua and Barbuda Observer. I think what we have to highlight, first of all, we have to recognize the challenges which we face in our hemisphere. And the majority of our challenges which we face have to do with many countries, whether it's migration, whether it's climate change or climate crisis, whether it's economic resilience building, whether it's security. It's not only one country involved in that process. So we have a situation where when you have the majority of your problems in the inter-American system, in the hemisphere, with a cross-border nature, we need to work together. So if the OAS did not exist, was not created in 1948, I think under the current circumstances, we would have missed it terribly, because there would be no platform to discuss these issues. So the OAS has almost an intrinsic historical value, which we need to share not only, but also support and cherish, because that's the only vehicle we have to meet around the table and talk frankly with each other, with respect and openly, so that we can put the problems on the table and find solutions. And that's exactly what is the purpose of multilateralism and the purpose of the OAS. There is indeed a degree of skepticism with regard to the delivery capacity. What is the OAS meaning really for the people of the Americas? And that's something which we are working on to demonstrate that to the Americans. We want to bring the OAS closer to the people, closer to the countries in our hemisphere, so that the value is not only seen or felt, but is also embedded in the society. And that means working with private sector, working with civil society, because all of us benefit from what the OAS is doing. I hope to give tomorrow some examples of that value. So that's the first thing. Recognize the issues, be willing to accept that there is a platform. The OAS is not a solution for everything, but the OAS has a convening power to bring countries together, to bring institutions together, which can help facilitate a solution. We have to possibly do better. That is the efficiency operation which we embark on within the OAS. We work much closer with member states. That's the intent, to listen to member states, because they are the owners of the OAS. There's a management, and I intend to manage and leave the politics to the member states. But the institution will have to deliver on what member states want. So this is the second, third thing which we want to do. The last thing is important, and that is the maintenance of peace and security in our hemisphere. And that is not only a responsibility for the OAS, it's of course a responsibility for the member states. We want to promote dialogue, consensus building, and we want to make sure that we have the capability to have respectful discussions, even if we disagree. Even if we disagree on methods, that we can listen to each other. It's a different environment which we want to create from a political perspective, with involvement of the whole inter-American system. And there are many inter-American institutions. I mentioned 3 of them before: Pan American Health Organization, critically important also for the issue which Prime Minister Gaston Brown has put on the table on mental health, or if you want, non-communicable diseases as well. The OAS has played a role in it. We are not a health institution, but we can give political momentum to these issues so that the Pan American Health Organization can take and run with it. The same is the case with the impact on development. The crisis which we have because of hurricanes in the region, not only in the Caribbean. There are many other countries which face natural disasters. How do we facilitate a process? Well, we engage with the sub-regional banks. We engage with the Inter-American Development Bank. Again, the OAS is not a development financing organization, but in the political discourse, we must make sure that the OAS provides attention to these issues. And once it gets there, then the mandate following to the institutions that need to execute will follow as well. So we see clearly a role for the OAS, and the only thing which we need to do now is set up the institution as a well-run organization, effectively demonstrate its value to the member states. Member states invest in it every year. We're not asking for more money. We will show that we can do better with what we have, but there will be a point when we need to look at what is the contribution of member states, but only once we have determined and demonstrated the value of the OAS to the whole region. In terms of the Caribbean experience, I think I mentioned already, the Caribbean brings experiences which are very valuable to the whole hemisphere. I come from the region, but let me be clear as well, my responsibility is to the whole Americas. That means all the member states of the hemisphere. And but it is great to learn from each other and to share those practices. Now we can bring certainly those assets which the Caribbean can present to the betterment of the whole hemisphere, also to the OAS table from an institutional perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. We have another question from the floor.
Good morning. Rakib Aprizi from the Antigua Barbuda Broadcasting Services. Mr. SG, my question is to you in terms of the OAS's overall responsibility in the regional integration of the people of the Americas. So the US has made its position clear on things like travel, deportation, and the fact that that actually affects OAS member states directly, given the fact that we are on some travel ban lists potentially, as well as deportations from the US are going to OAS member states. And seeing as the US is a member of the OAS, any indication from any of the member states regarding possibilities of any side meetings with the US on these issues, or will that be discussed generally?
Thank you. Of course, partly as this a question which should be addressed to my colleague on the left, as it's a bilateral issue. But from a more general perspective, let me say this. Every country has its own rules and regulations and laws to determine how they deal with the border issues, the flow of persons coming in and out. As long as the law is followed within the countries, there is little others can do. But there are two aspects which I always appeal to member states to keep in mind when deportations take place. It's not the first time this is happening. This is happening all the time. This is much more pronounced in terms of policy, and possibly more media attention. There are two aspects which we have to appeal to member states to recognize as well. One is that we need to observe the human rights of those being deported, in terms of the way deportation takes place, and that it's happening in a humane manner. The second one is that it's always better for those who are being deported, but also for those who have to receive the deportees, that there is some degree of consultation with the host countries, the receiving countries in this case. Because that will facilitate a process where the host country can then prepare for such an inflow. That's the only two things we request member states to observe. So, and in terms of whether this question will be discussed further, it's up to the member states. It's up to individual countries to discuss. I know that discussions are taking place, so I hope that member states, both the United States and the affected member states, will be able to find bilateral solutions to that effect. On a broader picture with regard to migration, and deportation has a little bit to do with that, I have always appealed that we not only focus on the short-term resolution on this by focusing on the legal, procedural aspects, but focus also on the reasons why people migrate and they become either undocumented or beyond the time they are allowed to spend in the country. The reason why has to do with what underlying causes are there for migration to take place. In the most cases, it's a forced migration because of security issues, no prospects for the future in a certain country, in their own country, and sometimes natural disasters, political instability. So we have to work on two tracks at the same time. Countries can do what they need to do on the basis of their own decision, but at the same time, and there is a role for the OAS and the Inter-American system to play on this, is to foster social and economic well-being in the countries. And this is something which we are discussing also with the private sector. How can we create more jobs in the country so that people from that country who do not wish normally to move can stay in the country and live a peaceful, happy life with prospects towards the future for their children. I think that's another track which is much longer because that takes more time, more investments, much more closer collaboration with societies and governments. But we're going to look at what options are there as well. Important is that people are not forced to leave the country. And if that happens, then migration and deportations will become less prominent than we see today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Before moving on to more questions, let me make a brief announcement. I'm being told that some people viewing us through the webcast are experiencing some technical difficulties. I wanted to reassure them that we will be posting the full video and audio of the press conference in our website, our YouTube channel, and all our social media, so you will have access to the full press conference. Are there any more questions from the floor? If not, we can move to some questions we've received remotely. Guillermo Iriart from La Nación in Argentina. To the Secretary General, what are your expectations regarding the relationship with Argentina in particular? What role could Argentina play in addressing crisis in the region, especially in Venezuela? And is there any plan in the way to secure the release of foreign nationals detained in Venezuela, such as Argentine gendarme Nahuel Gallo?
Thank you very much for La Nación's question. I recognize Argentina as a founding member, a long-standing member of the Organization of American States, and as an organization that has made valuable contributions from a policy perspective to the OAS. So the role we see for Argentina in the OAS is to continue remaining a strong member of the OAS and share with us their priorities, their set of objectives they would like to see established. That conversation with Argentina is ongoing. I had the pleasure of meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister Wertheim, just a couple of days ago in Washington, D.C. We discussed several issues of relevance to Argentina, and I believe we see eye to eye on many of these issues. In terms of the detention of Argentinian nationals in Venezuela and what the OAS can do, this is something which will be discussed when I go back with member states as well in terms of how we engage with Venezuela, but also if there is evidence about illegal detention or arbitrary detention, but also that certain rights of people are not granted or respected, the OAS will make its own statement with that in mind. The Secretariat of the OAS is guided by not the politics in the hemisphere. That is not our job. That is something member states will take into account. The Secretariat, including the Secretary General, is guided by the principles upon which the OAS has been built. And I have mentioned representative democracy. I have mentioned the rule of law, security issues, the tenets of sustainable development to create prosperity. Those are our marching orders. So I hope that we understand that my approach will be somewhat different in terms of facilitating resolution going forward. So in this particular case, we certainly will seek not only guidance, but also have a discussion with member states how we treat with this. But on the principle, we certainly will engage with Argentina further to receive more information and see what can be done to alleviate this issue in this particular case.
Thank you. Andrés Fidanza from El Observador from Uruguay. What is the OAS's position regarding the upcoming municipal elections in Venezuela in July following the presidential election fraud last year? And separately, what is your opinion on the recent ICE raids on immigrants in the U.S. and the U.S. State Department's decision to review foreign students' social media accounts?
Well, let me start with the last one because it relates to an earlier question about the decisions taken by the United States. It is really up to the government of the United States, the administration, to determine the rules under which they consider granting visas and other kinds of permits to students or other groups. That is something to be respected. That is a decision of national government. And of course, we have always stated that international law and general practices of good behavior and good approach are important. There are issues with regard to privacy and the right on freedom of expression. All of that needs to be taken into account, but it's not up to us to determine in what way the United States wishes to grant access to the country. That is up to the United States authorities. With regard to the upcoming elections in Venezuela, we hold a view that the challenges which Venezuela faced previously, in previous elections, that those have not satisfactorily responded to. We had requested, many countries had requested information with regard to the tallying, the counting of the ballots, the proof of that, the evidence of that, so that we could determine exactly in which way, in what way the election results were going. That has not happened. So what I hope for the elections are important at whatever level elections are, that they will take place in an atmosphere whereby there is no rejection or that every citizen of Venezuela will be able to participate in the election free and without fear. I think it's important that we see full participation of political parties in this process, and that once the election has taken place, that we see in a more transparent way in what way the election outcome or the electorate has decided to vote and what the outcome is. So we will be awaiting that process. Free and fair elections are critical elements of the work of the OAS as well, but it's certainly something which requires full attention, and I hope that the authorities in Venezuela will be allowing for a full, transparent process for the elections at the level of the mayors.
Thank you. We have a question from Jason Calderon from NTN24. Former Secretary General, former OAS Secretary General Luis Almagro stated that dictatorships in the region should not have a seat at the OAS table. What is your position on these statements, and what role do you believe non-democratic regimes should play within the OAS?
Let me say that Luis Almagro and I know each other for a long time, so I respect him. I don't think it would be proper for me to comment on his comments at the moment. But from a general perspective, I have stated before that it's not up to the Secretary General to determine which side the OAS should take in any conflict. The role of the OAS is to be an honest broker, and we cannot take sides. We take sides on principles, not on politics. So the principles, that's where we take sides on. Human rights issues, the observance of human rights, the rule of law, the representative democratic processes, promoting peace and security. We will take sides on that, on a principle basis, but not on the politics. It is member states who will determine whether a country can be part of the OAS or not. It is not up to the Secretary General to do that. So I think it's important that we keep clear what the role is of the Secretary General and the member states in this regard.
Thank you very much. Eva Rodriguez from AFP. Do you believe this is also for the Secretary General, do you believe the proposals in the draft resolution on Haiti are sufficient to change the situation on the ground? And a second question is regarding the conflict in Iran. Will you address the issue? Has a joint declaration been planned?
With regard to Haiti, I'm very pleased to see that this General Assembly will consider a resolution on Haiti. It contains certainly the elements which need to be addressed. The resolution will form certainly a basis for further action. We have announced within the OAS already that the Secretariat is preparing, in collaboration with member states, in collaboration with authorities and the mission in Washington, D.C. of Haiti, a roadmap which will include different pillars, 5 pillars, from security, humanitarian assistance, to political processes, consensus building, formulating an agenda towards the future, as well as the holding of representative elections, and then a plan for building economic resilience. For us, it's critical. All these elements, the resolution, the debate, the commitment, the solidarity which is being expressed towards Haiti at this General Assembly, but also beyond, it's critically important that we recognize 2 elements that need to be observed. One is it must be under Haitian leadership. The ownership of the process must be Haitian-led. And that's why we need to work with the Haitian authorities. And I know that there is enormous commitment from within the hemisphere to materialize that. The second element is that we have, as an Inter-American system, certainly as the OAS, been working for many, many years in Haiti to get a more structural approach to betterment. And I think the expectation, the political expectation of member states is, how do we make sure this time that it sticks, that it remains there, that we do not fall back in the same routine? So this is something which is going to be critically important in terms of building a future prospect for sound social and economic development. It's going to be a long haul. It's going to be requiring a lot of money and engagement from the Inter-American system, especially the banks. But we need to make sure that whatever roadmap is developed now will result in a more predictable future for Haiti, both from a political perspective as well as from an economic perspective. We want to be helpful, and member states as well, but as I said, this has to happen on the leadership of the Haitian authorities.
Thank you. Edward Rivas from EFE. What kind of support this is a follow-up on Haiti. What kind of support does the OAS expect from member states in terms of security and humanitarian assistance for Haiti?
The first and foremost issue at hand with regard to Haiti is, of course, the security issue. But we cannot wait till security is fully guaranteed or mitigated. We will have to work on tracks simultaneously. We will have to work, and this is something which is foreseen in the roadmap which is being developed, is that some of the required investments and activities will need to happen sequentially, one after the other, but some of them can take place at the same time. The political process of developing a forward-looking agenda, political, constitutional reform, economic development, can happen while we deal with the security environment. But humanitarian assistance will need to wait until there is a secure distribution capability from the port to those in need. Only then we can mobilize humanitarian assistance. And I'm very convinced that within the hemisphere there is a great commitment to provide that humanitarian assistance. It's not only food and water and basic needs, it's also medical supplies, school programs and so on, for food and so on. So we will work on this in such a way that there will be a template where member states can say, I'm prepared to help you with this at this moment, but I cannot do that. And it will be a template to choose and I think it will provide a timeline going forward to make sure that we reach that point where Haiti has a legitimate government and a legitimate parliament to govern the country.
Thank you very much. And I have a question here for Robert, and from Robert from Antigua Observer, for both Minister Green and the OAS Secretary General, and I don't see him here. At the summit, it is expected that diplomats will discuss a resolution on the critical mental health crisis in the Americas. While it is a good first step that after years of ignored activism by civil society groups for our governments and our region to take mental health seriously, how does the OAS or how will the government of Antigua and Barbuda plan to expand this resolution?
Thank you, Robert. The clear position is that we're bringing what, in our opinion, is a region-wide problem to a most distinguished and august body, the OAS. We anticipate that the treatment will be such that the takeaway document and the approaches thereafter will see significant programs being developed to deal with the issue across the Americas. If I may speak to our own action or treatment of the subject, first we'd agree that to bring it here is an identification of a problem. You asked the question Antiguan, and so therefore you could help me to expound in this body, in this press conference, on the steps already taken by government of Antigua and Barbuda to invest in significant program initiatives to deal with the issue of mental health. Not only have we invested in the physical infrastructure, we've also invested heavily in personnel to impact and to certainly deal with the challenges we see here in Antigua and Barbuda. But again, our bringing it to the OAS is because we recognize that there's a broader problem, a wider problem, a bigger problem that affects the entire Americas. And so what we're hoping for is that this Antiguan initiative, if you may call it that, be given the time of day it deserves, not only in a discussion at the OAS, but certainly in the application of programs, development of programs through power and other institutions as a takeaway.
I think the Minister is very clear about the objectives and the reason why this matter is being raised at an OAS meeting or in the margins of an OAS General Assembly. I just want to add one point, and that is that basically the issue of mental health, which is an increasing problem if you look at the numbers in the Western Hemisphere, touches directly on the pillars upon which the OAS is found. In terms of democracy, their rights, in terms of security, both from a health security perspective as from public safety, personal security, the human rights, how we treat with that as members of a society, a wider society, but also their access to facilities, to economic opportunities, to prosperity. All of this is part of the OAS core objective, core purpose. So for us, it is something which we have to take at heart, and this goes for many other topics in our discourse over the coming months, where we need to make sure that the resolution which will be issued, that it contains actionable items where we can mobilize not only the OAS capabilities, but also the Inter-American system. And the Pan-American Health Organization, as well as the Inter-American Development, come to mind here to develop programs which will support this matter. There used to be a very famous phrase in the Caribbean, and that is that a healthy population is the wealth of the region. And if we look at that, this is exactly what we're trying to achieve, is a healthy population. Pay attention to all those elements in our societies to make them healthy and contribute to society and its progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Foreign Minister, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General. That's all the time we had. Before going, a friendly reminder that we will have the full recording of the press conference available in our website, YouTube channel, and social media channel. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending this one. Thank you.